So back to the first question was if you found any negative impacts while collaborating, like any difficulties?
I wouldn't say collaboration in itself. There are times when a school might have a team that's designed to get some processes underway, and sometimes if the teams get too large, it's just hard to come to a consensus. So there kind of comes a time when a decision just has to be made in order to move forward. Otherwise, you're just kind of spinning your wheels and not really getting anywhere. But as far as collaboration, I think that's pretty much the foundation of what we do. So no, I don't really see that offhand.
Does it make a difference, like who you're collaborating with? Like if there's like negative impacts or positive impacts, and, like teachers, parents, students?
I guess it depends on how you define collaboration. To me, I think everybody has their own perspective, and so it never hurts, especially I think parents have a different perspective at times than a teacher might, because we tend to focus more on the academics. Parents may be looking at other things going on in their lives, and so to try to find that middle ground, I think to ignore the parent and just kind of move forward without addressing that can really create more problems down the road. So it's always good to, try to get the parent's perspective and to try to come to a point where you're maybe not in agreement, but at least if you can agree to a decision, then at least to get to, a final place where you can move forward with what you're trying to do. So I don't know if that answered your question.
So how would you personally define collaboration then?
You guys are putting me on the spot. Well, again, I think it's people working together and you're trying to make decisions. It's always easier if you have the same perspective and if you have the same values and you're trying to accomplish the same goals. Sometimes it can become difficult if people have different goals and different priorities, I guess.
So what do you think the key factor is, like when you're collaborating with someone?
Listening, and I think before you can move forward in some cases, you really have to unearth where everybody is at and address those barriers, because sometimes we try to move forward and we keep coming against these walls and we don't necessarily understand them. So I guess just trying to understand everybody's perspective and address the things that we can address, and then try to move forward. Sometimes you have to put your personal feelings aside too and just look at what's best for either the student or the situation.
So when you're collaborating with someone, do you know when they're not, the collaboration is not working out versus when it is?
Many times, yes, not always, but definitely in my role in particular, I'm a school psychologist, so I work with teachers, and I've had situations, especially teachers that have been teaching for a while, that they're not comfortable implementing some of the newer types of interventions or strategies and things, and so I've done professional development, and many of the teachers will go back and just do it, and they're comfortable with it. They believe in it, and so it's not an issue. Sometimes I've had to meet with other teachers individually and just kind of hold the hand a little bit more, and a couple of times it's been where they've really been reluctant to even implement interventions, and that becomes more challenging if there's more of a resistance, I guess. So I guess that's part of the collaboration, or at least how I feel that my role is to first figure out where the barrier is that they just don't know what to do and they're not comfortable with it and they just need me to kind of show them more explicitly, or do they just figure, hey, I don't have to do this unless somebody makes me. I've had that happen before too, and then then collaboration does kind of come to a halt, because if it's something that has to happen for an IEP, for special education, then I may have to go to an administrator and just have it happen rather than the collaboration, which is never the preferred way to go, but sometimes it happens that way.
All right, so this one's a longer question. So in class we talked about the 7 principles of collaboration, which are like advocacy, equality, commitment, trust, respect, professional competence, and communication. Do you see these principles while you're collaborating?
Okay, repeat those again. Equality,
Advocacy, equality, commitment, trust, respect, professional competence, and communication.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Joanne, your cherry lemonade is ready.
We answered a lot of our questions through other questions.
Okay.
I guess what tips can you give a starting teacher about collaborations?
I think starting out, especially, your collaboration becomes easy for you. The difficulty that I see in education, and I come from a different background where I had worked in business for a while before getting into psychology, and I was very surprised how isolated teachers can be. I mean, in a way, you're kind of thrown into your classroom, and here you go. And sometimes I think people see it as a sign of weakness if, classroom management is tough, and that takes years of really a lot of practice and a lot of experience to really get that under control. And a lot of times I think sometimes beginning teachers might struggle with things just because they're not sure where to go or who to ask for help. And I think that's, I would like to see it set up, built in more into the system where teachers are given more support rather than working individually all the time. I think there's some great ideas out there, and if you have the opportunity just to brainstorm, people have already gone through, chances are, what you're already doing. So rather than being out there on your own, even experienced teachers, I would like to see more experienced teachers get into other classrooms and get ideas from each other, because a lot of times you're just kind of on your own, and I think resources are wasted that way, because you might have somebody who's very creative or has a great way of dealing with certain things, but if you don't know about it, you can't really apply that to yourself. So I think as beginning teachers, usually you're very open, you're much more open to asking for ideas and building off of what other people are doing too. I would just like to see it built more into the actual educational process where teachers are supported more, starting out especially. But even as they get more mature too, I think a lot of times, people that are recently trained have a lot of more creative ideas sometimes that, people get comfortable in what they're doing, and it would be nice to see more of an exchange, I guess.
Okay, and our last question would be how do you prepare for a collaborative relationship?
I don't really, to me it's just kind of built into what we do, so it's not really something that I prepare for, but relationships are 99% of what we do, and so just trying to get to know people where they're at and having that going into a meeting is always helpful. If I know that I'm not on the same page, for instance, a lot of times we have IEP meetings, and if I know that I'm not on the same page with how I see something compared to what a teacher is, I will try to meet with them ahead of time just to see if we can come to a consensus so that we're not, back and forth in front of a parent. I've had that happen, especially starting out, and it's very uncomfortable. So, and I think you also have to be professional and just respect, again, like when I mentioned going to an administrator, if something isn't happening, that would never be the first route that I would take, and I would always let the teacher know ahead of time too, so that we can maintain, always be professional and respect each other, even if we're not on this, in agreement on things. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions on the topic?
That helped a lot.
So how much